everybody, we're up and running here. Right now I'm just doing a Q&A while I'm setting everything up here. And then we're going to go over spellcasting and combat. All right, so let's see here. Spellcasting and you. All right, so I've got right now just the main three spellcasters here. So you've got the Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. And I'm going to go over kind of what each one of those is as far as how they cast. That's it. The breakdown of the class we're going to do next. But this is just, you don't know how to play D&D at all, and you want to know what it means to be a spellcaster. Alright, so this is just a sample guy we got here. He's the Sorcerer. Okay? So Sorcerer, natural magic, basically somewhere in your bloodline. And there's various reasons for that. So these are all just basically guys I just made for different examples. So race, UNT pureblood, background hermit. But here's the important part. So each type of guys cast with a different stat. So here's a warlock, same as the sorcerer. Okay, same thing. Charisma is their casting stat. So what you're going to look at is to attack, just like when you're attacking with a weapon, you're going to add your proficiency and your charisma to it. So if you look over here on the left, you can see my charisma down here +3, and my proficiency right now, because I'm level 1, is +2. So essentially when I roll an attack, I'm going to get the dice number +5, and that goes against their AC. Now certain spells have a spell save. And what that means is generally it's a negative debuff or something happening to them, and they have to fight against it. And for them to do that, they have to beat your spell save DC, which is difficulty check, similar to AC's armor class. So DC is 8 plus proficiency plus charisma, which honestly as a spellcaster, basically just memorize whatever it is. So I know my charisma is +3, I know my proficiency is +2, so I'm just going to know that it's always going to be 8 plus 5. You can also check it, for example, this is on Fantasy Grounds, so you can actually look under abilities and you can see what the save is. But let's say you're playing, just paper and pen kind of in front of people, that's how you remember it. So charisma is a warlock and a sorcerer. Okay? Now here we've got ye old wizard, and he's going to be, oh, that's a lie. Stand by. I didn't change this one. Oh, change it. All right, there we go. Now we're not liars. Okay. So Wizard's going to be the only one that actually casts with intelligence, not charisma. Ignore that. That was a lie. So same exact thing. Your save is going to be 8 plus proficiency plus intelligence, and your attack is proficiency plus intelligence. Now, getting into your other kind of secondary casters, so your druid, your paladin, your cleric, all those guys, when you look under spell casting, when you create them, it will tell you what you use. And that is spell casting in a nutshell. There will be a spell save and a spell attack. Attack is like when you're going to hit them with a weapon. Save is for them to resist it. So hopefully that made sense. Super easy, right? I'm going to save that. Spellcasting and me. I'll add the other ones later. I'm going to do a full video later when I can edit it. This is just Twitch streaming. Alright. Boop. I hate that it defaults to the other one, guys, but sorry about that. So next is combat, okay? So, important thing here, D&D is about having fun. Pick what you want. The guy's by no means the final word on characters, etc. Alright, this seems like a lot here, so I'm going to leave it up there on the slide. But combat in D&D, you have spell casting and you have weapons. And what that's going to mean is when you want to actually fight and take something out, you can use spells and you can use weapons in combat. In addition to that, obviously you can use messing with the terrain and not actively hitting the actual opponent, but doing some kind of inventive things. But for broad stroke purposes, we're just going to talk about combat here. Each round of combat in D&D is 6 seconds. That's important because certain spells have durations or buffs that you have, like Barbarian's Rage lasts a minute. So just remember, each round that's gone by after everyone's taken a turn, okay, that's going to be 6 seconds, okay? Now, when the combat starts, you're going to roll initiative. And what that basically means is how quick everyone is to just jump into the fight. So initiative is going to be everyone rolls their d20, and then they add with it their dex modifier, and that's going to be their initiative. If you roll a nat 20, it means you're going to get to go first. Generally, it also can mean you get a surprise round. So that's why you've got there step 1, determine surprise. So basically the GM can determine who gets surprised. It's not a guarantee, and certain things can affect that, but if they're surprised, certain people get a bonus round. It's called a surprise round in combat, which means before the round starts, some people get to do an extra hit. Established positions. If you're not playing with an actual board where you can visualize it, the theater of the mind, as they call it, you're going to basically be like, all right, here, your character's here, your guy's on the tree over here, things like that. And it's to kind of, so everyone can visualize what's going on in the battlefield. Marching order is going to be essentially if you're walking in a line or, traveling through a dungeon or something like that, who's where. That'll be important for determining range, melee, attacks of opportunity, things like that. So, find out who's surprised, find out where everyone is, and then you take your turns. Combat for D&D is very simple. You're going to roll a d20, and depending on the type of fighter you are, martial class, I should say, you'll either use Dex or Strength. Add that modifier to your attack and see if it beats their AC. Okay. So that's the breakdown for initiative. That's what you can do on your turn. Bonus actions. So in addition to your normal action on the turn, you can take a bonus action. So it'll tell you if the ability is a bonus action or a normal action, and that's the same for spells. Okay, so you'll be able to take an action and a bonus action. Important to note is that when you do an attack action, a lot of times you'll get 2 attacks, 3 attacks, 4 attacks, etc. as you level up for your attack action. Okay, so 4 attacks and then attack action. Here's more things you can do on your turn. You can communicate, but remember, it's supposed to be like happening all at once. It's supposed to be taking 6 seconds for everybody. So a lot of times this is kind of fudged, but people will have a very coordinated attack plan and shift that as guys die throughout the turn or throughout the round. Some DMs won't let you do that, but there you go. Reactions. You will get one reaction, okay, until the start of your next turn. Reactions you can use as a counterattack. Reactions you can use. Certain feats let you, impose disadvantage by defending your buddy. So that's what a reaction's going to be. Apologize, I'm going to turn this music down there. Okay, so that's a reaction. Movement position. There are certain rules that DMs will play with as far as combat with flanking and attacks of opportunity. Those are two things to be important with position. If you are here and the monster's here and you've got a buddy directly opposite you on the other side, so opposite diagonal or opposite across from you, you can play with what's called a flanking rule, which essentially means that both you and your buddy have advantage. Not all DMs play with it. I think it makes sense, so I'll play with it. But that's up to the DM. Another thing to note is attacks of opportunity. So if you move out of a threatened square, you can get attacked. And what that means is any monster can use its reaction, or you can, if a monster moves away from you, to attack. Make a free attack against that monster. It's not an attack action, just one attack. You can break up your move. So let's say you have a movement speed of 30 feet. You can move 10 feet, take an action, move 20 feet. Again, keep in mind that attack of opportunity. If you take an action that includes more than one attack, you can break up your movement even further by attacking between those. So for example, with the extra attack feature, 10 feet, move, make an attack, move, attack again. Different speeds. This will be important if, for example, it shows here you could fly as a wizard. Let's say you have a horse. Let's say there is terrain. But if you're on a mount, you can overcome it. So if you're switching back and forth between your moves, you subtract what you've already moved. Difficult terrain, exactly what I was talking about with terrain. If you've got difficult terrain, it just costs extra. So basically half your movement. So you got 30. You want to move, it's going to count as double that, essentially. Normally on a board or a grid, each square counts for 5 feet. Just remember that. Being prone, basically you get knocked down. If you're prone, you get knocked down. It's going to be half your speed standing up. And I don't know if I put that here, but I didn't. If monsters attack you, they're going to get advantage on you because you're prone. Interacting with objects. These are all examples. I put a bunch of them. There could be more. Interacting with objects. So you can do that on your turn. It does count as your action. That's important. For example, drawing and sheathing a sword. Basically swapping your weapon, opening a door, closing a door, doing a lever. A lot of times people will try to throw that into the combat. It does cost an action. So keep that in mind. Also important, it's kind of down there at the bottom, but you can see there, boop, handing something to another character, that counts. People will try to cheese that one. So if you're a DM, keep that in mind. If you're a player, keep that in mind. Creature size. A creature is always going to take up 5 feet generally on the board, whether they're small or medium, just because of the figure is. But keep in mind that a small figure can occupy the same space as a medium creature. It's also important to note, I put squeezing there. Again, talking about those 5 feet spaces. just because there's a 5-foot space doesn't mean that big Umber Hulk or whatever can't get through. They can do what's called squeezing. If they squeeze, that basically, once again, extra foot of movement for each foot of movement they move, and they're going to have disadvantage on attack rolls, dex saving throws, because they're kind of squeezing through. Here's all the actions in combat you can do. I already talked about an attack action. Casting a spell, I kind of went over that a little bit earlier with spell casting. It takes an action to cast a spell. Again, remember some spells do count as bonus actions. Dash, so let's say you want to move rather than make an attack. You're trying to get over to away or towards somewhere. You can basically take double your movement, and that is it for your action. Something else to remember with a dash action is you cannot hide if you dash. No, if you dash, it makes your while you're hiding, you move slower. I think it's 5 feet slower while you're hiding. Disengage action. There it is, talking about those opportunity attacks. If you disengage, you're not going to provoke opportunity attacks. Dodge. When you take the dodge action, you focus entirely on avoiding attacks. Till the next turn, any attack roll made against you has disadvantage if you can see them, and you make dex saving throws with advantage. Essentially, if you know you're going to get volleyed at, whether it's close or range, but generally because dex saving throw advantage is for range things, it's good to do if you're about to just get volleyed to death. You're going to do the dodge action. A lot of people forget about that one. And disengage. Your rogue can disengage generally for free, but everyone can do it. A lot of times people forget about that and they take a beating when they move away. Help is really easy. You can basically, you're assisting someone to perform a task, and they get to do that with advantage. That's in and out of combat. Hide. Again, everyone can roll a hide check, not just the rogue. It's basically the stealth. Very important thing to note with this, a lot of people treat hide like a cloaking device. It is not. I want to emphasize that for everyone. Hide basically means that you are hiding in an area that can be hidden in. So if you're entering to the throne room where it's just a straight walk through the door, there's nowhere to hide, you can't really hide. Okay? There are some feats and classes that can hide in shadows and things, but if you don't have that, you can't roll a 20 around the corner and then walk in and be like, I'm sneaky. No one can see me. It doesn't work like that. But if you're obscured, I think they say partially obscured, you can hide, and you're like hiding behind barrels or pillars or in other creatures. So that's what hide's for. It's to sneak and avoid combat or sneak up and gank someone. Ready action. Another important thing for players is the ready action. What that essentially means is that, and you have to declare what it is. So, and I've got some examples there, but if someone's going to do something, and you know that it's coming, but you can't do anything about it right then, you'll do a ready action. So an important part of that, by the way, is combat has to have already started. You can't, as you're walking along, I've readied an action. If something shows up, I'm going to shoot it. Nope. But combat's happened, you've rolled initiative, then you can ready up. So your fighter's in combat, you're a spellcaster, you ready your fireball, you're a go. The minute my party members are out of range, I'm going to fire the fireball. You can do that. And the ready action only lasts until the start of your next turn. Oh, sorry, I skipped too far forward. Important thing to note here. When you ready a spell, you cast it as normal, but it holds its energy, which you release with your reaction. So that's important because some things require concentration. So if you're concentrating a web spell and you ready magic missile, the web spell ends, and if you take damage before you release magic missile with your reaction, your concentration might be broken. So if you've got something going on and you ready the action, that's going to cancel what you had going on. So keep that in mind too. Search, pretty obvious. You can search the room. Searches can be either investigation checks or perception checks. And use an object. Draw a sword, pull the lever, touch. This gives you the breakdown for making an attack. Essentially meaning, I'm going to attack that goblin. Next, the GM's going to say, all right, he's got cover, you've got advantage, you got disadvantage. What spells do I have? Am I raging? Do I have a buff? Do I have bless? Do I have a help action? And then you're going to roll. At which point, your dice plus either, like I said, whatever modifier you're using, strength or dexterity, if you're a martial class, or your spellcasting modifier, which again we kind of talked about earlier, charisma, wisdom, or intelligence. We call those the mental stats. You're always going to cast with one of those three. Druid's wisdom, Ranger, I believe, is wisdom. Bard is charisma. Sorcerer's charisma. Warlock's charisma, etc. So there's the breakdown for you. AC is the armor class. You got to equal it. Okay, equal. Remember, equal. Modifiers to the roll, and boom. I've got it kind of broken down here. Attack is strength. If you're using ranged, it's dex. If you have finesse or thrown, you can break the rule. And some guys can use, like Monk has the ability to use dex for all weapons, I believe. Just like with spells, add your proficiency to your attack, add the modifier you're using, plus what you rolled. Rolling a run, rolling a 20. It's basically talking about crit attack and crit fail. A 20 is a crit hit. It always hits. A 1 is a crit fail. It always misses. Beyond that, you can have a fumble crit chart, but it's not part of the game. That's actually homebrew / basically what DMs allow. I like to play with one. Another thing to note, there is no critting of skill checks. No critting of skill checks, okay? Some people like to put that as a homebrew. It is not recommended. The game is not made for that. If you 20 it, you really do well on it. That's it. Unseen attackers. This basically just goes over if you're hidden, if you got darkness, or if they can't see you. Basically, if you're attacking someone you can't see, you have disadvantage. So there are invisible creatures, there are displacer beasts, there are cloaks you can wear to displace. One of my characters says that. My DM loves it because they always have to roll with disadvantage because I'm not where they think I am. If you can't be seen, conversely, excuse me. If you can't be seen, you have advantage on your attack rolls. Here's a scenario for you. You're invisible, fighting an invisible guy. No one's in the room. You're trying to fight each other. You both roll with disadvantage. Or it's just, you can't see each other. Or I've heard DMs rule it where you basically cancel each other out and use a normal attack. But I would say no. The whole, role-playing of it is you have disadvantage because you can't see them, right? You have advantage on an attack against something that can't see you because Look at that. If you're hidden and you attack, it gives you away. That's only for hide. That's not for being invisible. Sometimes it'll say if you attack, it reveals you. I think greater invisibility, you stay hidden. But just keep that in mind. You're not going to have advantage just because both of you are invisible. Range. I like playing with a grid, and no one's confused about where monsters are. Like I said, I play with Fantasy Grounds. You can use Roll20. That's where I got this information from. This is from Roll20. But if you're not doing that, it's kind of hard to calculate range. Every weapon has a normal range and then a long range. You basically have disadvantage if you're attacking at long range. I'd like to emphasize that long range is very long. I've never had a campaign where it's mattered. Essentially, if the DM remembers his army's all the way down here, and you're all the way over there, and then you're like, I want to make a shot a mile away. Because I have a familiar. I sent my owl over to give me line of sight, because it's important. Then it would matter. But the long range is just, it's so far. So don't even worry about it if you're in a dungeon. No hallways are that long. Range attack in close combat. Basically, if you're a range guy and someone's next to you, you are going to have disadvantage. And that's true for spells or for shooting. There are ways around it. There are feats and things, but if you don't have them, that's the rule. 5 feet reach. Thus, attacking targets within 5 feet means it's a melee attack. You can also do what's called an unarmed strike. There's also something in D&D called an improvised weapon. You don't have any weapons and you just want to hit someone. It's just going to be bludgeoning damage of 1 plus your strength modifier. That's it. And an improvised weapon is going to be a D4. So I pick up a table or chair, I WCW you and hit you over the chair head with it. It's D4 plus strength. Or dex if you throw. If I throw a bottle at your head. Opportunity attacks, I already went over that. If you're moving out of an area where you're threatened, they get to make an attack on you. 2-weapon fighting, basically if you're making a bonus attack with your other weapon, you're not going to be able to add your ability modifier to it. Okay? There are ways around that. There are feats that let you negate that, but that's default. Grappling. Alright, I'm a barbarian generally, or I'm a bigger guy, and I'm going to go try to grab a guy. You grab him, you make a melee attack, okay? It can't be more than one size larger than you. Basically, you're not going to grapple a dragon. Because that'd be hilarious. You seize him. Instead of making an attack roll with athletics or an acrobatics, dex. So you're either going to just grab him wrestling style, or you're going to dex and you're going to MMA Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu him. If you succeed, so it's your roll versus their roll is what contested means. Then they're grappled. Grappled basically means they can't do beans. They're incapacitated. People attacking a grappled creature, they're going to have advantage. And if you're grappled or the monster's grappled, they can use a escape action to get free. Essentially what they're going to do is, just like before, contested athletics or dex. Sorry, or acrobatics, I meant. When you move, you can drag the creature with you, but your speed's halved. Unless it's 2 sizes smaller than you, which I guess would be like a furball grappling a kobold, because most guys are medium, they're not large. Contest and combat. A challenge represented. This includes grappling, shoving. Basically, if you're trying to do anything where you're exerting yourself on them, they can fight back. That's why it's considered contested. Cover. This matters the majority of the time for your spellcasters and your archers. Again, it's not like Warhammer with cover rules. All you're going to need to know is if they have half cover, they get +2, which makes sense, half their body, right? 3/4 cover, I'm mostly peeking over the wall there. I'm 3/4 cover. Total cover, they can't see me. So all you got to remember is +2 +5. Okay, +2 +5. Damage and healing. Pretty simple. Your hit points is your life. You take too much damage, you're knocked down. Okay? Damage rolls. When you apply damage, with a penalty, it's possible to deal 0 damage, but never negative damage. Pretty obvious. Crit hits. When you roll a critical hit, you get to roll an extra die of the damage. That's it. So 2d8, I'm going to roll 3d8. And you're just going to add the modifier once. That's it. This goes over every damage type. Don't worry too much about memorizing all this. All the damage types mean is certain creatures are vulnerable, resistant, or immune to certain damage types. As a hero, Draconic Resilience, Tieflings, I think Asimirs. In fact, I even think some of the Eladrin also. But basically, if you've got resistance, you're going to take half damage. If you're immune, you're going to take no damage. And if you're vulnerable, you take double damage. There it is right there. Healing, basically when you heal, you're never going to heal above your hit points. But basically heal back that many hit points with healing. Insta-death. Terrible, terrible insta-death. Has a maximum of hit points, currently has 6. It takes 18 damage. Total damage remains because the remaining damage equals her hit point maximum. The cleric dies. It generally happens with earlier parties, weaker parties, that just get killed like that. Otherwise, you're unconscious, and then you roll death saves. Death saves are when you basically are fighting to either come back to life or to die. You get three death saves, okay? You roll a d20. Come on, big money. 10. 10 means I passed the death save. If you roll below a 10, you fail the death save. Here's the important part. A crit fail counts as 2 failures, and a crit success, you regain 1 hit point. You hop back. If you take any damage while you're down there on the ground, you're going to automatically fail a death save. So, yeesh. Don't get hit while you're on the ground. Stabilizing a creature. Basically, you can make a medicine check, or you can do any kind of healing to stabilize them. There's Spare the Dying as a cantrip. There's a bunch of different ways to basically keep you from croaking. Knocking a creature out. Let's say you want to not kill them. You can say, hey, I'm going to do non-lethal damage when you down them. Temporary hit points. There's going to be a thing. Like I said, I use Fantasy Grounds, but each app can track it separately. Temporary hit points is basically extra hit points you get from some ability. You can't heal temporary hit points, but you can basically have them there. Lose your temporary hit points before you lose your normal points. Mounted combat. Essentially, you're going to be faster. You're going to be able to move around. And generally, the creature has to allow you to ride it. If you're mounting or dismounting, it's going to half your speed. So if my speed's 30, I can spend 15 feet to mount the horse. If somebody knocks you off your horse, you have to take a DC 10 dex save. Otherwise, you're going to fall off and land prone. We talked about prone. You don't want to be prone. Oh, I skipped that. If the mount's knocked prone, you can use the reaction to dismount, so you tumble to the ground. Controlling a mount. You can control the mount, or it can act independently. The mount can dash, disengage, and dodge. It doesn't fight. Underwater combat. If you're making a melee attack with a creature that doesn't have a swim speed, if it doesn't have a swim speed, it's some water here. The beard, you never get used to the beard. So, if you basically aren't in your native element, is what that's trying to say, or if you have magic, helm of water breathing, you're going to have disadvantage on the attack unless it's a dagger, javelin, short sword, spear, or trident. Essentially something that can move naturally in the water. Also, range automatically misses beyond the normal range, so you can't long shoot in the water. And at normal range, you're going to get disadvantage unless it's a crossbow, net, or a thrown weapon. And that is it for that. So guys, I ran through a lot of that really fast, just to not go too long. Didn't really get anyone in here to answer any questions, but that's fine. We're just getting started. I'm going to be doing a lot more with this, just trying to get kind of the basics, and then we'll cover a little more in depth, and then we'll go on to other tabletop games, kind of breaking them down. We do have a web store. I've got an eBay store up right now. I've got distributors I'm putting together. I'm also going to have a website where you can order from, and Amazon for anything tabletop, D&D, even some collectibles, comics, things like that. So please keep that in mind. Beyond that, I mean, I'd love to be able to connect with people, talk with them, and kind of figure out your thoughts. I think it's mashing on my poor ears. My poor ears. There we go. Now it's not messing with my beard. So yeah, please let me know kind of what you're looking for, what questions you have. I've played D&D for over 20 years, so I'm kind of trying to come at it from a newbie, but I know I do take some stuff for granted, so I'd love to get people into the hobby. I know D&D is kind of getting hot right now. People are trying to get into it. So I love to get more people into the hobby. I love it. I've played just with dice, and that's it. No miniatures, no books, nothing. It's fun. It's a way to bring the family together. Everyone, multi-generational. Yeah, it's just a great game. So I would love to, talk with you guys and connect with you. I only got on for an hour today. I will be putting the class video up. I've also got the gods and goddesses of D&D that I'm going to be doing as well. And then from there, I'm going to go and do a race breakdown for all the different races you can pick from. And then we're probably looking to do maybe some in-depth guides of each class and kind of the optimized ways you can build them. And then we might just do some funny D&D stories. I'm running 3 different campaigns right now. And so we're definitely got some stuff to draw upon to talk about. I've done like a live recording of the game. I've got my table and everything right there, but I find unless you're Critical Role, where you have everything, kind of studied and scripted and everyone knows their line, they're all professional actors, it gets kind of boring to watch, even if everyone's having fun. So probably not going to do that unless people really want to see a live stream of it. What I'd rather do is invite some people from the community and just host over Fantasy Grounds. apologize, I keep looking over at the camera. So that is kind of where we're at right now. Let me know what you'd like to see more of, and just feedback, positive or negative, is fine. This is my second time streaming this, and I'm still working out the kinks, but I'm definitely passionate about tabletop games, D&D, and I'd love to get more people into the hobby and just enjoying it. It's tons of fun. So hit me up. We've got the Facebook, we've got the YouTube, like, subscribe, that whole deal. I'm going to be continuing to do this Twitch on Fridays. Maybe it'll bring people in. I understand it's not a common format the way I'm doing it, but that's what I'm doing. So please let me know, and I will hit you guys up in a little bit. I'm going to pull up in a video and see if anyone shows up to chat for a little bit, but that has been the stream for tonight. All right, thanks. Mm-hmm.